This is Fantasy Football Insider. I'm Cole Seibel, and I'm covering the top fantasy starters and the biggest football plays on this week's card. Let's get into it. All right, at QB1 this week, I'm rolling with Bo Nix. He dropped 39 fantasy points last week against the Giants, an absolute domination from the second-year quarterback. Now this week, he gets the Dallas Cowboys. And let's be real, this defense has been torched all year. They rank dead last against the pass, and they give up the most points per game to the quarterback position at over 26 fantasy points per game. This matchup is juicy. I'm calling it right now, Bo Nix stays hot. His fantasy forecast for the week is 231 yards through the air, juicy. 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 56 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown for a fantasy score of 27.84. At wide receiver 1, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. Last week, CeeDee Lamb had 25 fantasy points against the Commanders, and the question is he back? Oh yeah, he's back, and I'm taking him at wide receiver 1. The Cowboys face the Denver Broncos this week, who on paper rank 9th against the pass, giving up about 208 yards per game. But don't let that fool you. Against elite passing attacks, that number jumps to nearly 300 yards. The Broncos give up about 20-plus fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, and this one's shaping up to be a straight-up, mile-high shootout at Empower Field on Sunday afternoon. My fantasy forecast for Lamb is 8 receptions, 119 yards, 1.5 touchdowns for a total of 24.9 fantasy points. At wide receiver 2, I'm taking Rashee Rice. Last week, Rice went off for 23 fantasy points against the Raiders. On 10 targets, he had 7 catches, and he's reclaimed his spot as Kansas City's #1 option through the air. I'm locking him in at wide receiver 2. The Commanders can't stop the pass with over 255 yards a game. They are a bottom 6 defense, and they're bleeding nearly 30 fantasy points a week to wide receivers. Rashee Rice will be heading to Target City, and yeah, he's got his red card ready because he's about to rack up some serious points at game time. With Jaden Daniels out, expect the Chiefs to dominate time of possession and pile up a ton of offensive yards. My fantasy forecast for Rice is 6.5 receptions, 75 receiving yards, 1 touchdown for a total of 16.75 fantasy points. Lock it in, Rashee Rice is a rock-solid wide receiver 2. At running back 1, I'm taking Jonathan Taylor. Last week, Taylor had 33 fantasy points against the Chargers with over 130 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns. The dude is straight fire. He's the #1 running back in fantasy football, and he leads the league with over 99 rushing yards per game. This week, the Colts host the Titans, and the Titans' run defense, yeah, it's been rough. They're ranked bottom 3 in the league, giving up 139 rushing yards per game, and they allow 25-plus fantasy points per game to the running back position. That's 5th most in fantasy. Expect to see a lot of Jonathan Taylor pounding the rock all afternoon. My fantasy forecast for Taylor is 107 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 receptions for 18 yards for a total of 26 fantasy points. Lock it in, Jonathan Taylor is your running back 1. At running back 2, I'm taking Bijan Robinson. Last week, Bijan put up 21 fantasy points against a tough 49ers defense. But this week, this week's a different story. The Falcons host the Dolphins this Sunday in an early window game, and the matchup could not be sweeter. Bijan comes into the matchup as the #3 running back in fantasy football, and he's facing a Dolphins defense ranked dead last against the run at over 139 rushing yards a game, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back position at over 27.5 points a game. That's prime real estate for Bijan to eat. Here's my fantasy forecast for Bijan Robinson. 85 rushing yards, 1.5 rushing touchdowns, 6 receptions for 69 yards, and 0.5 touchdowns. That's a total of 30.4 fantasy points for the week. Lock it in, Bijan Robinson is your running back 2. Here's your Week 8 list of the most added players straight from Yahoo Fantasy Football, broken down by position. My NFL prop bet performance through Week 7, 15 correct picks, 9 incorrect picks. That's a 62.5% hit rate. I'm dialed in and looking to keep it stacking. Let's get into this week's picks. My first pick of the week at quarterback, I'm taking Bo Nix over 23.5 rushing yards. Through the first 7 weeks, Nix is averaging 24.5 rushing yards a game, and he's 10th among all NFL quarterbacks with 172 total yards on the ground. He's facing a Dallas defense that's been getting gashed on the ground, giving up the 2nd most rushing yards per game at 141.3 yards. Bo Nix over 23.5 rushing yards, minus 104, lock it in. My next pick at running back, I'm taking Bijan Robinson, anytime touchdown scorer. Bijan has been a touchdown machine, and this week he faces a Dolphins defense dead last against the run. Expect Atlanta to feed him in the red zone, and I have him finding the end zone at least once. Bijan Robinson, anytime touchdown scorer, minus 250, lock it in. Next up at wide receiver, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb over 5.5 receptions. Lamb is Dallas's go-to target, averaging 7 receptions a game, and I'm looking at him to keep that momentum rolling. He's facing a Broncos defense that's been giving up big games to top receivers, so expect him to be heavily targeted again. CeeDee Lamb over 5.5 receptions, minus 152, lock it in. My 3-leg parlay with these first 3 picks is plus 328. And finally, my 4-leg parlay, I have added Jonathan Taylor over 100 rushing yards. Taylor has been crushing it all season, averaging over 99 yards a game. This week he faces a Titans run defense ranked in the bottom 3, giving up 139 yards a game. Taylor is going to see a ton of carries and opportunities. Add Jonathan Taylor over 100 rushing yards. This 4-leg parlay is plus 679. That's a wrap on Fantasy Football Insider. I'm Cole Seibel. We'll be back next week with more tips, matchups, and sleepers. Until then, keep it stacking. This fantasy football show has been brought to you by the Collector's Table on eBay, where you'll find great cards at great prices. This has been a Lion's Mane production. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future shows.